ladies, gather round. They can fight a war, but they can't take a picture.
As a scientist, I was first taught to search for a cause, then seek a remedy. Treat the disease, not the symptoms alone. So I searched, just as I was taught.
What am I? A Scotswoman, doing in the Irish Rising? You aren't the first to ask. Nor are you the first to think we Scots might ought to be doing the same ourselves. After all, didn't we once declare, but for as long as but 100 of us remain, never will we, on any condition, be brought under English rule. Sure, that was in the 1300s. We put up a good fight. And I'm thinking, there's still more than 100 of us left.
I don't know why I'm here, to be honest with you. I'm not educated like the other ladies. I mean, Dr. Lynn's a medical doctor. Margaret, a school teacher's in maths. Even Elizabeth, a trained nurse. Me? They market to live. I think they made a mistake.
I held the note, Miss died, trying to reconcile myself to the end. And then I thought, if this is how I am to be remembered, then I'll play it out with pride.
Each of us followed a path to Easter week. Each of us has a story to tell.
The fact is, I was born in Glasgow of Irish parents from Monaghan in Ulster. I don't know what influence that may have had, but I do know this. From the time I was a wee one, I knew that all men and women are born equal in the eyes of God. Before I was a teen, I knew. I saw with my own eyes the great disparity of life between the native Irish and the planters, those English given the spoils of Cromwell's attempted genocide. So, I suppose you could say I was a rebel from the outset. When I looked around, whether in Ireland or to a lesser degree, my home, Scotland, I saw injustice. An upside-down world in which the many had little, the few a lot. A world in which women, without cause, were systematically excluded from public life. Now, I didn't know the term at the time, but it's sure I was a born feminist. I became a mathematics teacher, and along the way I learned that talk is easy, change not. It takes a certain kind of force to get things moving. I'm not advocating violence, simply referring to Newton's law. You know, a body at rest stays at rest, all that. It's just that sometimes a body needs a wee kick in the arse, you know what I mean? I visited my relations in Ireland often. That's how I come to meet the likes of Constance Markievicz, others too, amazing women. Constance had formed this organization, Cumann na Man, that's Irish for Council of Women. Sounds benign enough, but we were pledged to fight for Ireland's freedom. And I don't mean wield a broom, a laundry sack, a saucepan, or a stew pot. Oh no. Pretty soon, we had a Glasgow branch, did dismounted drill, pistol and rifle practice, military training, you know, moving firing lines, ambush attacks, sniper tactics, all that. I was already a good shot when I joined up. As a girl, I trained with the British Defence Club. We girls were taught to shoot, to help defend the Empire in case of attack. Ironic, isn't it? And me, the only woman wounded in the Rising, fighting for the Irish cause, no less. It's time I set the record straight on that. There were, so I heard, more than 6 other girls wounded besides myself. I don't know who they are. But I do know this. Margaret Keogh, a nurse, one of us, was shot and killed by the British outside Dublin Union South, giving first aid to a fallen volunteer. That's a fact. There were girls in the rising from all over, mostly Ireland, but from Australia, America, Wales, and England. And while many did what you might hear, cook, clean, type, basic chores, if you will, plenty were soldiers. As proud and full of spunk as any of the men. The women of Asgard, running guns from Germany. The girls who smuggled, transported, and hid arms. Us of coming to man, good shots, toughened, trained, ready for a fight. So let's stop with the fiction that we weren't there. The worse, that we were and didn't do our part. Enough of that.
You know how some families have rituals, like saying grace at meals or going to the park on Sunday afternoons? Ours, cleaning and storing guns in our house, hiding bombs and ammo under the flower bars. Seriously, that was just regular stuff to us. I sewed clothes for the park during the Indian the Daughters of Ireland at age 15. We created and made meals for the park as well to their homes and schools, so we get at least one decent meal a day. But there was a lot more going on. My mum, dad, my baby sister Molly, my brother, me. We cleaned and stored guns in our house. We grew up knowing there'd be a fight. And we all knew that someday we'd play our part. Maybe that's it. I don't even remember a time thinking I wouldn't play a part. So when the rising came, and Molly and me were assigned to the distillery at Marylebone Lane with the others of Cumann na Man, see Countess Markovich formed this group Cumann na Man. So we became the Inyani branch of Cumann na Man. The rising. What a week that was. Molly was a good bit younger than me, still in her teens, and it was rough stuff to be sure. We sent her home after a few days. I stayed on. We took a great bit of fire, returned a good bit too. We took casualties, drove the Brits back, morale was high. Even when Elizabeth here gave the order to surrender. The order to surrender. We all wanted to cry. Some did.
I can't let them see me cry. Neither my own nor the British. I can't let them see the hurt I feel inside. I can't show the shame I feel. Betrayal or duty. Both, I don't even know. Would he have called on someone else? Not me, a poor Dublin girl. I've been loyal and active in the Daughters, trained as a volunteer, but I'm only a nurse. Not even that. But I'm no politician or diplomat, tending the wounded, comforting the dying, praying over the dead. So much practice as of late. Too much practice. I felt such dread when I saw this in his hand. Oh God, please, no. Burning knots deep in my gut. I near took sick. This white cloth of ignominy. Cold. Near panic. I couldn't move. I wouldn't look up. I didn't want to hear what he had to say. Each word, like molten shot. Take this to General Lowe. And he handed me the note. We'll ensure your passage to the line. Tell him I wish to discuss with him the matters at hand. He must have read my mind, seen inside, the horror tearing me apart. And then he said, "Would that be okay with you? Would that be okay with me?" No, not ever would that be all right. I'd rather this my dying day. What of our hopes? The children? Freedom? Our dreams? All to suffer again? No, that would not be okay. But me, a volunteer, him, our leader, and this, his request. I nodded, told him if it was his wish, I'd fulfill it, do my best. So I took the cloth, this flag, this, my hands, still soiled, stained, bloodied from treating them in. He told me the gist of what was in the note. Oh, God, please, no! I wanted to shout. My final act for a country I love so well. To surrender, not defeat, he said. Why didn't I feel that way? There was no further instruction than that. I held the note on his flag, trying to reconcile myself to the end. And then I thought, this is how Elizabeth O'Farrell is to be remembered. And I will play it out with pride. I turned, fighting back tears, gathered myself. Me, the face of Ireland, my people, and strode out as erect as a finest corporal on parade, passed through that barricade, and with head high I crossed that street. With all the grace and style a poor untrained Irish girl could muster. I walked straight up to that young British sentry. He aimed his weapon straight at my heart. "State your business," he declared. No tears, I reminded myself. No looking down or away, eye to eye. I said a silent prayer. Then, my voice strong and clear, I spoke in Irish. He would hear my tongue, flag or no. He would hear me speak and know himself to be a stranger in this Irish land. Choctarat to Vaktak, Okean Fort Pierce. He glared, hatred, spat in my face, growled some insult. I stood my place. Oddly, his hatred of me gave me strength. I'm here to see General Lowe. Make no delay. An urgent word from Commandant Pierce. And brushed him aside with an air of disdain, as though a wealthy lady out on a lovely spring day. Then, in a moment of spite, uncharacteristic for me, I turned and said, a mere afterthought, "As for your uncultured act, you snarling pig." He raised his rifle, pointed it at me. I nearly choked, the bayonet pressed into my throat. Yet I smiled. I'll see to it that General Lowe hears of your civility towards this Irish lady. Turned and walked gracefully away. Before long, I was confronted again. More guards. An officer this time. I bear a flag of surrender, not one of defeat. But they seized my person, hurried me into a nearby tent, cut the red crosses from my apron and sleeves, searched me throughout, called me a spy. spike of anger rose up in me then. I imagined wondering all low and I would meet. I'd throw down his cloth, lunge at his throat, and him, God willing, dispatch to his fate. Such was the surge of passion. Never belied one's word. Once given, once bond. I had to come under a flag of truce. These past few days are the longest I've ever lived. Escorted place to place, under British Guard, bringing word to every commandant of the provisional government, each in a fortified fighting position, along with the soldiers, women and men, both. We are all ordered to stand down. A few refused, but in the end we all complied. He simply wanted to die. My duty done, near broken in spirit, I was brought here to kill Maynham. Searched inside and out, humiliation added to my lot. Some of the others, even worse. We were girls no longer, 21. Only here, alone, can I give vent to the feelings inside. What now? Self-governance, self-rule, our language, our pride, our leaders, all executed, now buried outside. All this done by the cloth in my hand. If I survive this place in days to come, and someone asks me my story, I will tell them only the barest of facts. This happened, and this, and that, and that. Not a word of the feelings I choked back. Sorrow, shame, the fear, the blame. No, I will be the face of an Ireland I wish there to be, even in her loss. Erect and strong, no matter the cost. And if that account be devoid of spirit, at least the barest facts will be told.
After the rising, we were all locked up. I swear by all that's holy I've never been so depressed. But Elizabeth Pearce said it all. I know it was hard for her to say what she did, but she spoke the truth that was in all of our hearts, even though some wouldn't be inclined to admit it. Most of us girls were in tears. But there's an ironclad wouldn't tell a lie here to ail you, singing and dancing. That's a fact. So when the Brits come to collect us at the distillery, Rose McNamara and Annie Cooney was in charge of us girls. Our commandant, Con Kilbert, says us girls can go home. The Brits don't want to deal with you. That's all the more reason to stay, I said. So Rose turns to the lot of us and says, what do you think? And we 201 said, hell no, we're staying with the men. All right, maybe not all of us. Said, hell no. All right, it was just me. But we all 201 refused it. So Roisin, that's wee Rose in Irish, she tells the men we're staying and that's all there is to it. And she farms us up in bars and we march behind the boys and... Sorry, I can't go on about that. As a doctor, I swore an oath to preserve life. And I followed that oath to my dying day.
And though circumstance led me to being commandant of a garrison of volunteers, I will forever cherish the honour thus bestowed upon me. You see, I knew the slums and tenement homes, the poverty and disease which plague like hungry wolves, especially on the weakest, our children. In Dublin alone, more than 15% of all children died by the age of 1. And no one cared. No one in authority cared. I took this oath to heal, to do no harm, as serious as any can be. So, what was I to do then, when daily I went down any back lane of this capital city of British-ruled Ireland? I saw scores of poor living in horrible sanitation, no plumbing, little to eat, overcrowding water closets out back. The memory of it makes me ill to this day. Did not my oath then apply to these? As a licensed practitioner, was I not obliged to intercede? And if, by the grace of God, I was able to return a child to good health, would he or she not simply return to the stench and filth from which they came? And did that not, in substance, violate the very oath which I had made? I was not political by temperament. I tended to the poor, and I suppose was a feminist, certainly a suffragette. But I did not believe at first, at least, the tie between politics and poverty. That all changed the day Helena Maloney came to my home. Very ill. I took her in, nursed her back to health. She had long been one of the Inuni, the doctors of Ireland. I'm sure Sheila knew her, providing daily meals to the poor. Later, she joined Constance Markovich in Cannanama. She knew from an early age on that the empire, the state, was responsible for Ireland's condition. In time, I began to see as well. Through her, I met James Connolly, became active in the labour movement and joined his Irish Citizens' Army as Chief Medical Officer, which consisted of providing care to those organised to protect Protestant workers against assaults by police. We were an army such as it was. Our weapons? Only Harleys, wooden bats if you will. No wonder the Empire didn't shudder at the sight of us. But the ICA did something momentous. It admitted into its ranks on equal par, men and women both, elected women to important posts. It gave us the franchise that we could and should run our own lives, become whatever our talents and inclinations led us to be. In time, I began to see Helena was right. The Empire had sufficient resources to remedy all this, yet the Crown and King did not. All that was needed from Ireland was her land and her men. Recruits to die in her wars. The poor were simply impediments. Blemishes to be eradicated as in famine times, enlisted if of proper age, or ignored. Having found the cause, I swore an oath to seek the cure. When the call came, I, as Chief Medical Officer, along with the rest of the ICA, was assigned to the City Hall garrison. Our Commandant, Sean Connolly, was one of the first to die. Our next in command, Sean O'Reilly, died soon thereafter, leaving me in command. We fought on, held our ground, that is, until Elizabeth here brought us the order to surrender. That was bitter news. I approached the British officer who came to receive us. He refused to shake my hand. No insult to me, rather. One to womankind. I couldn't possibly be there. A woman, much less in command. Turns out, as they say, the joke was on us.
But Molly's we did, whenever things weren't so good. Sing. So I struck up a tune. I sang as loud as I could, and the girls joined in. And as we marched to our cells, we sang as loud as could be, like a bunch of damn fools. As we were marching past, we saw a battalion of our men under British Guard. Some were in tears. They took surrender awful hard. Us still singing, I yell over to them, "You'll get out, the fight will go on." One, John McBride, he yells back, "No, girls, you'll be going home. I'm afraid we're going to be shot." No one believed it. No one gave the Brits much respect. But we never thought they'd go that far. In retrospect, they sealed their own coffin lids that day. A few days later, and a number of days after, we would wake ourselves to the sounds of gunshots, a volley. And we knew John McBride was right. See, the worst part about prison is the depression. Not the vermin Kathleen treated that. Oh, she was such a blessing. Not the cramped quarters, the stench. It's a sense of hopelessness eating away at your soul. One morning, as usual, we woke to the sound of a volley, then a groan, and then another shot. He was gone. We didn't even know his name. It tore us girls apart. At 21 years old. So I start singing. As we gather in the chapel here in old Kilmainham jail, I think about the past few days. Oh, will they say we failed? And the girls, even those who couldn't sing a lick, joined in. And we sang loud, and some girls started to dance. A forehand reel, a Donegal jig. I don't even know where they learned that. But we danced and danced and sang, and oh God, we sang and danced. And the guards came in demand, and we stopped. Well, you know what that did. The halls of the filthy old tub rang out like cathedral on Christmas Mass. It took us a long time to get over it. Our hopes so high, then gone in a flash. When we were released, some girls went home. The end of the fight. Most stayed on. Like I said, the Brits sealed their fate when they shot those 16 men. I did my part, fought the Black and Tans, joined the IRA in the Civil War. Nothing special really, just doing my part. We won our freedom, but you know all about that.
There are so many stories. You might think there's no fun to be had in a rising. I don't mean to make light of it. It's serious stuff. But one girl, Madeline Finn, and me, Maddie I called her, we'd go off into the Wicklow Hills to test dynamite. We had so much fun. We'd make a thunderous roar. Dirt, dust, clods of peat and stones flying everywhere. We darn near bust our sides laughing at how silly it all was, blowing the shite out of empty hillsides. We were lucky we survived our own practice shots. Lord only knows why we weren't arrested and jailed. You can't hide the thud of a dynamite blast. We didn't even try. Funny thing, no one even asked. Maddie was a joy. She helped Maud Gonne form the Doctors of Ireland some years before. Maddie, I miss her. She was a force to be reckoned with by God. If ever I doubted the rightness of our cause, it was erased the day Constance took me on a tour of the Dublin slums, said she wanted me to see the problem firsthand. Didn't believe then, don't now. There could be a worse place on earth. Streets. Almost makes me cry to think on it. Hollows full of sewage and refuse. The buildings as full of holes as if they'd been under shell fire. There were 10 to 12 in a family living in a single room. No indoor water or plumbing. And all the while, fashionable ladies all got up in their finery, being chauffeured about in their carriages. I never had wee ones of my own. Can't imagine seeing them there, growing up in that filth. If you weren't up for a fight before, you would be to see that. Well, that or heartless one. I had a number of assignments. Sniper, the College of Surgeons. I don't think I missed even once. Toting dispatches around Dublin on my bicycle. Spying as I went. One time, they asked me to burn out some British soldiers barricaded in a nearby building. We wove our way there. William Partridge shattered the front window with his rifle butt, but it went off, alerting the British, who fired a volley. I was shot 3 times and went down. As I lay there, I thought for sure it was the end. I could feel the blood flowing out of me. My only regret, I got my uniform dirty. I was that proud of it. William picked me up, carried me back. A couple of months in hospital, then recouping in the home of a friend. Back to Glasgow to fully mend, and then off to America to raise money. We weren't done yet. You know the rest. I ended up paymaster for the IRA. Eventually, back to teaching. In a free Irish state.
Margaret didn't tell you the whole story. After the Rising, she applied for her pension. For service rendered the Irish state. Her application was denied. Was told the provision which refers to any person only applies to those of the male gender. Really? She applied again 12 years later, this time using her Irish name. The pension was approved until it reached the desk of a bureaucrat which recognised that strange combination of vowels with far too many consonants was a woman's name. Denied again. She eventually received her pension, but her experience highlights an issue I continue to struggle with to my dying day. The proclamation is and was very clear. It is what brought so many of us to the cause. An inspiration, a recognition, the answer to a prayer.
The proclamation begins with the words, all Irish men and Irish women equals. It calls on us all to cherish one another, cherish our children, cherish Imagine a government, a state, using those words, cherish. We must cherish each other. That might, at times, be hard, even dangerous work. But what's a life worth if it isn't that?
I got a lot out of the rising. A medal, a mention on the honour roll. More importantly, a man. You see, just before it started, I was at this dance. And I met this man, Gilbert Lynch. Oh, did I fall hard. And we danced all night, all the way till dawn, a bit scandalous, truth be told. And right before he left, he kisses me. He kisses me. And I wanted him so hard. He never forgot kissing me without a proper introduction. We married in 1925, after the Civil War. After I got out of prison again.
Elizabeth was, and is perhaps, the bravest of us all. No, she didn't fire a shot, but the courage it took to deliver the message of surrender with dignity and pride. The image of her, calm, confident. She will live forever here in our hearts.
Miss Elizabeth O'Farrell, nurse, coming on, in service to the Republic of Ireland.
Sheila O'Hanlon, Mrs. Gilbert Lynch, coming on in your knee branch, and proud of it.
Is Misha, Margaret, Prontius, ní Skinnider. I am Margaret Skinnider, originally of Glasgow, now of Dublin. Coming on in the IRA.
Dr. Kathleen Lynn, ICA, Commandant, City Hall, Garrison, Sinn Féin. At this time, we would like to honor the women who served throughout the Rising, Easter Week, 1916.
General Post Office, Garrison. Winifred Carney, Bridget Caron, Nellie Ennis, Nora Gavin, Julia Grinnan, Mrs. Joe McGinnis, Mary McLaughlin, Saraha McMahon, Florence Meade, Carrie Mitchell, Pauline Morkin, Elizabeth O'Farrell, Molly O'Sullivan, Dolly O'Sullivan, Ainan Ryan, Min Ryan, Phyllis Ryan, Ellis Moran, Martha Walsh, Kate Walsh, Mrs. Joe Walsh. Four Courts Garrison. Mrs. Conlon, Anna Fay, Julie Grinnan, Mrs. Hayes, Kathleen Kinney, Bridget Martin, Rose McGinnis, Phyllis Morkin, Lily Murnane, Mrs. Murphy, Mrs. Parker, B. Walsh, and Elaine Walsh.
Distillery at Marylebone Lane. Katie Byrne, Winnie Byrne, May Byrne, Annie Cooney, Elaine Cooney, Lily Cooney, Marcella Cosgrove, Bridget Hegarty, Katie Kelly, Josephine Kelly, Margaret L. Kennedy, Bridie Kenny, B. Masterson, Josie McGowan, Rose McNamara, Agnes McNamee, Rose Mullally, Margaret O'Flaherty, Molly O'Hanlon, Sheila O'Hanlon, Emily O'Keefe, Josie O'Keefe, Maura Quigley, Josephine Quigley, Priscilla Quigley. City Hall. Bridget Brady, Mrs. Connolly, Bridget Davis, Bessie Lynch, Dr. Kathleen Lynn, Helen Maloney, Annie Norgrove, Emily Norgrove, Molly O'Reilly, Jenny Shanahan.
St. Stephen's Green, surgeons, Chris Caffery, Countess de Markievicz, Mary Devereaux, Madeline French-Mullen, Nellie Gifford, Bridget Gaff, Rosie Hackett, Mary Hyland, Maggie Joyce, Annie Kelly, Lily Kempson, Margaret Ryan, Kathleen Seary, Margaret Skinnider, GPO St. Stephen's Green, Mary McLaughlin, Hannah Sheehy Scuffington, Bolins, Josephine Hergield, Courier, Ped Cudahy, and Maria Perros.
Unknown Garrison, Nano Aiken, Eilish Ogni, Kathleen Barrett, Kitty Barrett, Kitty Brown, Martha Brown, Eileen Byrne, May Karen, May Durham, Emily Elliott, M. Elliott, Ellen Ellis, M. Fagan, Kathleen Fleming, Bridget Foley, Katie Foley, Nora Foley, May Gahan, Patricia Huey, Sarah Keeley, Martha Keeley, May Kelly, Kay Lane, Mrs. Lawless, Catherine Liston, Mary Liston, Bridget Lyons, Kathleen Mahar, G. Milner, Jenny Milner, Mary Moore, May Murray, Bridget Murtaugh, Mara Nee Hubley, Lily O'Brennan, Nara Daly, Louisa O'Sullivan, Leslie Price, Matilda Simpson, Lucy Smith, Josephine Spicer, Dee Sullivan, Mary Sullivan, Eva Taff, Nara Thornton, Catherine Teston, Stasha Toomey, and Nancy Wise Powell.